triggered by something? I mean really triggered. I know I do. In fact, the emotions that come out of me sometimes are quite explosive. By the end of this video, I want to share with you a powerful truth that I learned from the craziest of places. A guy named Ted Lasso, a fictitious soccer coach from America that went to England to help turn a club's fortunes around. Now, as a bonus, I'm going to share with you a secret about Ted that maybe you don't know, and all of that will happen by the end of this video. So let's go take a look. For years, I really struggled with emotions that would just come out of me for no particular reason. Something would happen and I didn't know why I would get so triggered by it. But I really wanted to find a solution to this problem because it was affecting so many areas of my life. Now, when I say it was explosive, my triggers were incredibly explosive. I remember one time I was working in my garage and I was hanging some lights and the ladder wasn't really cooperating, and I ended up falling off the ladder. Because I was so angry, I took the ladder and I threw it across the garage. Then out of the corner of my eye, I saw my kids who had seen the entire thing happen, and I had to go over and apologize to them. But that wasn't the last time it would happen. In fact, it would happen over and over again. And I had to find a solution to this. Ted Lasso in the show on Apple TV, he finds himself in a similar situation with a group of players in a soccer team that were constantly explosive with each other and with other players from other teams. Ted has an amazing ability to be able to help them deal with their emotions. But here's a secret that we didn't know at the beginning of the show. Ted actually has an underlying issue with his own emotions. In fact, I love this quote that I heard years ago. It says this, that life is a series of losses. And if you don't deal with those losses, it's like burying them alive and they eventually come back to haunt you. So I needed to deal with the losses in my life. And I discovered an old ancient Hebrew solution that has been so powerful for me. Yeah, getting these jerseys in the numerical order was quite a trigger for me, let's be honest, just getting them sorted. Now, before we actually unpack this old ancient Hebrew solution, I want to give you a little secret about Ted Lasso. Spoiler alert, at the end of the second season, we find out that the reason why Ted focuses on helping all the other players unpack their emotions is because of what I would call an earthquake event that happened in Ted's life when he was about 16 years old. I won't tell you what happened, you'll have to watch it for yourself, but suffice to say that when we don't deal with the losses in our lives, we bury them or we pack them away alive, and when we do that, they actually come back to haunt us. We've got to deal with them, and this ancient solution from the Hebrew text called lament is an incredible solution. In fact, the second king of Israel, a guy named King David, he used to write a lot of laments. He had a lot of loss in his life, and he learned early on that if you don't deal with the loss, you just bury it alive and it comes back to haunt you. That's why maybe you and I are triggered by small things that are actually connected to big losses in our past. Now, David wrote a book of these poems and writings called the Psalms, and in this book, over half of these were actually laments. It was David dealing with his losses. I want to show you from one particular psalm kind of the structure that David uses in order to process his losses. It's a structure that I think you can use and I can use, even if we're not a follower of Jesus or a church person, even if you don't necessarily believe the Bible. This is a structure I think that would be incredibly helpful. So let's take a look at it. King David says this in Psalm 13. Will you forget me forever? How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Here's the first thing that David does when he begins to lament or deal with his losses. He takes his attention off of the loss and he puts it squarely on God. Instead of constantly focusing on the thing that you're triggered by or the loss that you're grieving, pause for a moment, take your attention and put it squarely on God. He uses some frank questions to really focus his attention on God. Now listen to what he goes on to say. He says this. He says, "Look on me and answer me, God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death, and my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall." David, again, is brutally honest with God. I love his honesty. In fact, it allows us, it gives us permission to be honest with God when we talk to him as well. He writes there and asks God specifically for what he needs. He complains about his situation and he asks God for what he needs. So, the structure of his lament so far is simple. Take your attention off of your problem, turn it to God. Then complain about your situation and transition to asking God for what you need. He wraps up the psalm and he says this, "Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes." And then he says, "But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me." David finishes his lament. He finishes dealing with his loss by actually thanking God and praising God for the good things that are in his life. So let me quickly recap what we can learn from David about lamenting and dealing with our loss. Turn your attention from the loss to God. Complain, be honest with God, and ask God for what you need. And then finish by just recounting how good God has been in other areas of your life. Maybe you would, like David, to journal your thoughts and to write down this focus and this attention and this complaining that you have and this honesty that you want with God. Maybe you don't want to journal it. Maybe you want to create a song, or you want to paint a picture, or you want to do something else creative to help you to really deal with the loss in your life. I think focusing, though, on this structure that David has given us will be so helpful for you as you identify the loss that you need to deal with, complain to God about it, and then turn your attention back to the things he's given you. So I want you to imagine just for a moment, the next time you get triggered, to think back, is there a loss that I haven't dealt with in my life that is actually connected to the thing that's triggering me today? And then I want to invite you to actually deal with that loss, like King David did in that psalm, and how we learn to lament, which is just simply dealing with our losses. I want to invite you to practically take some time to turn your attention off of the loss onto God, to talk to him frankly and honestly about that loss, maybe complain and ask for what you want differently, and then wrap up by sharing with him how grateful you are for the other areas of your life that you're not dealing with loss in. Now, imagine if you did that, the difference it would make in your life, but not just in your life, the difference it could make in other people's lives as well. Here's what I know to be true. I have a song that I go back to over and over again that was actually the result of a guy in 1870 dealing with a massive loss. Horatio Spafford was a wealthy businessman in Chicago, and he was scheduled to go on a European vacation with his entire family, but moments before the boat was going to leave, his family had to leave Horatio behind. Because of a business deal that he needed to close, he was going to go a couple of weeks later. On that trip across to Europe, the ship that his entire family was on went down. All 4 of his daughters were lost at sea, and his wife telegraphed him and said, "I've been saved alone." Weeks later, Horatio went over to Europe to meet his wife, and while he was traveling over the water where his daughters had drowned, he penned the words to one of the most famous songs, "It Is Well With My Soul." It says this, that When life's trials are overwhelming, I can still focus my attention on God and say, "It is well with my soul." Imagine the lament that maybe you write or that you paint, or a song that you discover because of dealing with a loss, that benefit not just to your soul, but to those that read it, those that see it, those that are experiencing it as well. I want you to imagine that and take a moment now to think about a loss that you can lament with this structure that David has given us in the Psalms.
Hey, thanks so much, Perko, for your Ted Lasso impersonation. If you want to find out more about that or any other pieces of content that we have here at Beyond, why not subscribe or click one of the videos that are floating around here to continue. If you want to make sure you stay up to date on content like this, hit the subscribe button, or if you want to keep watching videos and other pieces of content we've already produced, click around here somewhere. Bye.